Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 122 of WP Roundtable. My name's Kyle Maurer. I'm coming at you from Jackson, Michigan. I'm here with Mr. Scott Buscemi from Luminary Web Strategies. How you doing this evening, Scott?
Just fine. Nice to see you.
I guess I shouldn't say evening. It's not quite that for you. You're 3 hours behind me over there in LA.
Yeah, it's an afternoon over here, 2 p.m. At least I used to be in Arizona, so I didn't have to know what time zones were or have to deal with daylight savings or anything like that. So now it's been a little bit more confusing nowadays, or I guess less. I don't know, but it's definitely I'm over here, 2 p.m. It's the afternoon. I'm excited.
Yeah, it's great. Well, I'm officially working late because it's after 5 p.m. But it's worth it to have a great show with a great guest. So I'm excited about our discussion. We're going to learn all about what it is that you do, where you come from, what you're actively working on.
Yeah.
First things first, we're going to cover our quick picks of the week. So this is just part of the show where everyone present, it happens to be just the two of us today, shares something new, semi-interesting that we've come across. Could be a blog post, a plugin, or your favorite beer that you just tried on tap down the road. The latest article that I found pretty cool was a blog post written by a guy named Ian. He works with Delicious Brains. He wrote, "How I learned to stop worrying and love giving a talk." So public speaking is something that I love. Giving talks and presentations at WordCamps and other related events is something I spend a lot of time doing. There's a good chunk of the year that, or almost all of the year at any given time, I'm preparing at least one or two presentations for an upcoming event. And it's something that I love. And it's something that I think a lot of people maybe should consider making a part of their work life. So Ian spent a lot of time working on a great post. The Delicious Brains blog post has been a quick pick of mine before because they invest very heavily in making great blog posts, pushing out posts that are very thorough. So his article about putting on a talk for the first time, his experience as a very talented developer, but first-time speaker, I thought was enlightening. So I enjoyed it. Good read. Do you have anything to share, Scott?
You know, this one came up in discussions with some of the people that I'm working with. I think the website sellwithwp.com deserves some major props. It's kind of interesting for me where anytime that I'm working with WooCommerce, anytime that I'm doing anything e-commerce with WordPress, it keeps on just popping up in the search results all the time with the answers that I need. So that's definitely, that'll be my quick pick. If you're working on WooCommerce, if you're doing anything e-commerce on WordPress, it's definitely, it's always a resource with little even like snippets of code that you can use or kind of how-tos with all the extensions on WooCommerce.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a good pick. I'm very familiar with the site as well. It's come up in my search results many, many times. Are you familiar with the people behind the website?
Exactly, and that's not to give anything away, but that's one thing that I was looking at is how Skybridge uses that as a really cool tool to kind of feed people into their extensions.
Right. Awesome. Great quick pick. So sellwithwp.com and the Delicious Brains blog. Check them out.
Yeah.
So that out of the way, let's talk about you, Scott. For those who don't know, we're going to learn a lot about you. And we're going to spend the rest of this hour doing that, just that. So first, let's start at the beginning. I want to go back a little bit. Let's talk about your background, where you come from, and specifically, let's go back to before Luminary, before your career really got going on the web. Talk about when you were younger, what it is that you set out to do with your life. You said, "I'm Scott Buscemi, and this is what I'm going to do."
Wow, I don't think I've ever gone this far back in an interview. That's interesting. Well, for some context, I started my company when I was 14. So it's tough for me to say. I wasn't really answering life's big questions back then of what I wanted to do, what impact I wanted to have in the world. But I mean, man, when I was in elementary school, I really wanted to be a farmer.
Where were you living at the time?
So I was born in New York, but I grew up in Phoenix, kind of in the Scottsdale area. So my dad had some crops in the backyard that we would grow. We grew corn and watermelons, some other different fruits and vegetables, things like that. And I I really liked working on out there. But then I realized that there were those things. They're yellow and black. They go by like a letter in the alphabet, bees, and I didn't like bees at all. And then I realized that farmers would have to deal with bees all the time. And I think that was when I finally realized I did not want to become a farmer. So I started getting interested in computers, and computers really weren't that big of a part of my life. At least I feel like compared to some people that are in programming or in technology in some way. There's a lot of people that they'll say like, oh, I started programming when I was 5. I built my own like app when I was 7, something like that. Like I don't think I didn't. My first computer I got when I was in 6th grade, but I just got it because I wanted to watch DVDs on my computer. Like I wanted to watch movies on my computer. So I didn't really start touching anything business related or techie related until I was 12, 7th grade maybe. So I guess it's still not that crazy, but even back then I really wasn't doing programming or like writing crazy code.
So how about the inception of your company? You said you started it when you were the age of 14. Is that the same company? Is that Luminary Web Strategies?
So when I was 12, I had a family friend that wanted a PowerPoint built for his company. And he had like a kind of a multi-level marketing company, and he wanted to go around the world and give these presentations. He wanted kind of one unified presentation. And so I was at my grandma's house, and he was just saying it randomly. He says, I'm trying to find somebody that will build this PowerPoint for me. I'm willing to pay $500 to whoever's going to build this PowerPoint. So here I am, cute little 12-year-old Scott. I'd never ever touched PowerPoint before. I didn't even know how it worked. But I said, sure, I'll do it. So I spent the next 3 months figuring out how to make PowerPoint, make all the backgrounds, make all the transitions, move the font, all the other different things. And by the end of the summer, I had $500. So I built a cute little website called Scott's PowerPoints. And I was going to start selling PowerPoint presentation services. But that guy ended up only being my only client because it turns out there's not many people that want to hire a 12-year-old to build PowerPoints for them. So a couple years later, I had another family friend that he wanted a website built for his band. His band already had a site, but it sucked, and they wanted one with a cool calendar, all these other different things. So I had never built a website before, but I said, sure, I'll do it. So I figured out how FTP works. I found some like free template online of like an HTML template because I had no idea about content management systems back then, and I think they were still little tiny baby systems back then. So I put together a site, made $300, and the most hilarious part about that website is it had a calendar system on it. So every single day had an HTML page associated with it. Now, if I wanted to create a new month, I literally sat there and created 30 more HTML duplicate pages for each day of the month. And if there was an event happening, I had to edit the main calendar page, edit the main page for that month that showed that that date then had an event happening. And then I had to edit the page specifically for that day to put the event details. So thankfully, I think I was only charging like $18 an hour back then. But it probably wasn't the best use of anyone's time. And it goes to show the power of content management systems and how ridiculous that sounds nowadays. But it worked. It damn well worked. You know, it was a beautiful website. It didn't do that whole like responsive thing, you know, and it didn't have the whole like WordPress content management system. But I mean, if I was 14, so this was 9 years ago, it would have been 07, right? 06, 07. So kind of I don't know kind of where all the content management systems were back then, but I can imagine we would be looking at a really robust calendar system. Or I just didn't even know what the heck PHP was. Like I didn't know code back then. I just knew a bunch of HTML. So I built that site, and predictably, I created a company. And the predictable part is the name of it. I built a beautiful company called Scott's Websites. So it was Scott Websites, which makes even less sense. But I had a name, okay? So that was, I had that for a couple of years, and I actually had a friend whose mom needed a website, so I built another website. And then when I was 16, I actually incorporated and started a company and put it all together. And I think it was when I was 17 that I started actually Vivid Tech Services, which is the company that owns Luminary. And so it's been since forever ago. Technically, I say like the legal docs say that Vivid Tech / Luminary started in 2010. So since then, I've been running Luminary. That's my my unconventional story about how Luminary came to be.
So are you telling me that you haven't had another job?
So I missed something. You're right. When I was 14, I worked at McDonald's when I was 14 for about 18 months until I was like 15 and a half, almost 16. And I was making minimum wage. I think at the time I was making 6.25, maybe 6.45, something like that. And I actually I did pretty good, honestly. I think the day that I quit, they had me as a mock manager while all of the managers were in a meeting. And so I handle all the different things going on in the store for a few hours. And it's kind of funny to think of a 15-year-old just like managing a McDonald's store for a few hours, but I did like it. I learned a lot, and it was a good experience. I definitely didn't make the same amount of money, but I liked it. So that was really my only other main job besides just jumping right into to Luminary.
Wow. Fascinating, really. So that's quite a background. So basically, all of your relevant experience that we're going to talk about has been gathered through your own independent, self-employed work life.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because I went to college, so at least I learned an okay amount of stuff through that. But a lot of the stuff that I learn is trial and error. It's trying something, seeing if it works or not, kind of A/B testing my own company. And it's interesting because technically at my age, I could go work at another company and then eventually start my own company. And instead of learning lessons by losing money, or like when things go wrong, losing money, instead of just kind of with a regular job, you just, if the company makes a mistake, you still keep on hopefully making your paycheck.
Yeah.
Or you don't have the freelance ebb and flow and all those other different aspects of it all, but or freelance / agency / whatever, business owner ebb and flow. But it's definitely it's what I know, and it's what I can control, where I know exactly where the company's going. And I think it was Lori Grenier. I don't think this was her quote, but she's one of the women on Shark Tank, and she says that there's a lot of people that work 80 hours to avoid a 40-hour job, and that's it. That's a good representation of what I do and what a lot of people do.
Yeah. Yeah. Remarkable. Powerful. So does entrepreneurship run in your family?
Yeah. My parents, man, you're asking questions nobody's asked me before. It's kind of interesting. I like it. My parents actually ran a hobby store. So they sold crafts and trains and toys and even Pokemon, which I loved when I was younger. And I don't know if you remember, did you ever deal with Crazy Bones? They were like little plastic toy figurines. But that was like a huge craze in the 90s too. And so they definitely they have the spirit of kind of running their own business. And then my grandma ran a craft store as well. So I definitely I attribute that to my family. Yeah.
Fascinating. I mean, I would only assume when I was 14, the thought never crossed my mind. We did live on a farm, and I sold eggs from our
Nice.
chickens
See,
to
see.
other people. But incorporating a business at 16, not even on my radar.
Yeah.
Uh, Although my dad has been self-employed for a long time, so perhaps it should have been. Anyway, though, I want to talk a little bit about the evolution of your business, and
Yeah.
this is something that I think can be interesting to unpack at times. When I look back at the evolution of our business, I feel like there were milestones, there were turning points. The business that we have today is not exactly the same as it was when we started it, for all
Right.
kinds of reasons. So maybe if you could reflect a little bit over the years since 2010, you said when you started officially forming this business. What were some of those major milestones? So some of those big turning points where you shifted a little bit what you did, or maybe changed the offerings that you made, or leveled up in some way. The moments that really defined your business. Maybe your top three, if you could.
Oof. I was working on one. Let me think.
These
Um,
could be a lot of things. It could be a big client that you had. It could be learning a new skill. It could be a change you observed in the industry, a partnership you made with a friend, a bad experience with an employee. All kinds of things could be turning points that were the impetus for change.
yeah, I think so. When I first started dealing with WordPress, I had no idea that there was a community behind it. I had no interaction with anyone else that was there. I wasn't on Twitter actively and talking to other WordPress people. I didn't even know that there were places where you can help or find code that you can use or just good resources. So when I started digging into or attending WordCamps, that was probably one thing that definitely kind of changed my experience with the technology that we were working on, and as
That's a good
well
one.
the community that is around me, right?
Right.
Um, so that's definitely one, and then also an extension of that is the WordPress meetups. So I was in Phoenix, and there was the Phoenix or the Arizona WordPress meetups, and that definitely was really helpful for me to kind of know who's in the community and to learn every single time and just make really cool connections. And then the same now that I'm in LA as well. In terms of another kind of pivotal moment, um, recently, probably the past couple of years, I've been pushing. There's two things. We've been pushing for a focus of being the brains rather than the hands. So, especially when I first started, I would actually subcontract under a lot of other development shops or branding agencies or just other people that said exactly how the system should work or how the website should work. And then we would just be the ones that would actually code it. And I was pushing that really, really hard until I realized we weren't doing anything special at that point. We weren't able to actually use our brains. We were just taking what somebody else had thought of, put all the hard work into actually consulting with the client and understanding what they want. And a lot of times doing it incorrectly and then just saying, go for it, right? And we wouldn't have any say on, hey, this probably isn't a good idea, or hey, there's a better way to do this. Instead, it was just, this is the spec, build it, I don't care what you say. So that changed when I finally said, no, no more. I want us to be able to differentiate ourselves through our brains rather than what we do. That's definitely been a huge impact, and it's actually made it so I'm able to say no more often to clients because if they're just coming up with a 20-page Word doc on exactly what they want, usually right then, like when it's 20 pages of just bullet points of all the different things of the little tweaks that they want on their site, I usually know it's not a good fit because for us, it's more, let's actually build a good vision for where you're going with your company and how your site is operating for you. And then from there, build out actual development list of what needs to be done on the site. Another thing for us has been actually focusing on e-commerce. So online sales through WooCommerce, easy digital downloads. Those are sites that we have been focusing on a lot more. One, kind of from a competitive standpoint, there's a lot of people that don't do that. And two, going off of that, there's a lot of people that don't want to do it. Like they don't want to even touch it because e-commerce is difficult. and it's also risky. It's something that if you get wrong, that bad things can happen. So that challenge is definitely really intriguing. And that's really what brought me over into it, is to say, let's actually do something that really challenges us instead of just kind of building out yet another WordPress template. No offense.
Right. Okay, that's pretty cool. And I know it maybe is kind of a little late in our discussion to cover this, but if you could, maybe just spend a brief minute, 30 seconds or so, in describing your company as it is today, as somebody, maybe a viable prospect. We're asking you, what is it that you do, Scott?
So we help e-commerce websites build their site, grow their site, and update their site. So that's we do regular sites as well, but for the most part, we focus on e-commerce sites that sell memberships online, sell products online, or any other sort of digital goods online, and actually help them to implement a strategy in terms of different features that they can add, or conversion optimization as well. So how they can make it so that more people are actually turning into customers for them.
Excellent. It sounds like, zoomed out with minimum details from this perspective, like over the course of this business, you've done a pretty good job of learning some lessons and gradually narrowing down your focus over time. And that is something that a lot of us struggle with. That is something that a lot of entrepreneurs at the start don't acknowledge the importance of narrowing your focus, specializing in something. Yeah. Would you say that that's something that you're naturally good at, that you succeeded in gradually niching down, narrowing to e-commerce, specifically finding the plugins that you're good at, sticking to those? Or have at any times you struggled from the shiny syndrome that many entrepreneurs do when chasing this or chasing that or adding this service now and then because it looks trendy? Have you struggled with that at all in the course of your business?
It's, there's a really, really fine balance of using the knowledge that you currently have of different extensions of different, even let's just say like coding languages, and also at the same time appreciating new things, right? So not saying, oh, I've never dealt with that before, therefore I'm not going to do it. That's how big, huge companies have these legacy systems that are still from 1980, from 1970s, that they haven't upgraded because they're afraid of the future. But at the same time, you don't want to be on the bleeding edge where you just keep on going for new technologies and they keep on hurting you, or you never stabilize in any way and actually get efficient and have those economies of scale and all those other benefits that come with actually understanding what the heck you're doing and being able to offer that in a really affordable way.
Right.
So the cool part with WordPress is that there's cool platforms that are on top of it that aren't stagnant. So WordPress alone, or WordPress itself, is a good example that it's a platform that's quote unquote been around for a while, and yet it's still actively being developed, still having new features being added. It's still getting, of course, the security support as well. So for us to say we work on WordPress doesn't sound like it's something outdated, and it doesn't sound like something that's too far ahead. It's just right. It's kind of the Goldilocks. And WooCommerce is the same way as well, where it's been around, it's stable, but it's as well growing, adding new things. Other extensions are adding on top of it. So we're in the sweet spot with WordPress, with WooCommerce, with easy digital downloads, with all the other platforms that we use, that they're not too old, they're not too new, but it's not to say that if something else comes in our inbox, that we're not going to at least explore it. So even kind of as a tangent to that, I've been exploring Shopify and kind of seeing if that's an option. If that's something that, somebody has a Shopify site, if we'd be able to help them, or if somebody comes up to us and says that they want to build an e-commerce website, if Shopify would be an option that we suggest as how we build it out. But those, that's one of those things where it's like, do you look at something that's completely different and offer multiple things, or do you just offer one solution and be done?
Sure. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense, and that's some Good insight. What do you think about the e-commerce space right now? I'm just interested in kind of some of your candid comments. When you're talking to prospects, people coming to you and they have e-commerce needs, and then WordPress comes into the conversation. How is that? And has it changed in a while? I can just say that my experience has been that as WordPress's market share has grown, I'm having more customers coming to me requesting WordPress and fewer conversations where I have to sell it as the platform of choice. I don't know if that's been similarly your experience. Maybe you could just comment on when WordPress comes into the discussion with these prospects. How does that go?
Sure. So a lot of our leads actually come from our listing as a Woo expert and as a consultant for easy digital downloads. So for the most part, the people that we work with are already interested, or they already know what platform that they're using or that they're interested in. We don't really focus on, like, I've never had to sell WordPress even to people that don't know what platform to use. I've always just focused on the solution. I always just say, we're going to do what you need. We're going to do, what you should be doing. And the customer really shouldn't care what platform that they're on, as long as it's easy to use and it's something that they can understand.
Right.
But the one thing that I have been really pushing for is making sure that people aren't spending their entire budget just on development, that they actually understand that there's this thing called marketing that needs to happen. Because the first e-commerce website that I ever worked on, I worked with the client, and we worked really, really hard in building this beautiful landing page. This was back in, I was still in high school, so I almost said 1999, 2009, 2010, somewhere around there. So it was some e-commerce platform that I don't even know if it exists anymore, but it was on top of WordPress. The backend UI looks like crap. That's all I remember. But we built it. We spent all this time. She paid me, I mean, technically not that much money because my hourly was so low. She paid me. We launched it. She spent all this time building. It was a physical book, a booklet with DVDs that you would buy. She spent all this time building it. I can't imagine, and thousands of dollars. And we launched it, and nobody came. Nobody showed up, and there were no sales. And 6 months later, I logged in, and there was one sale, and it was her testing the system. So that happens very, very often. Even nowadays, where I see a lot of people, they'll work really, really hard on building their systems rather than actually trying to figure out, how are people going to find out about this? How are people going to think that it's special? Why are people actually going to buy from this? It's really crazy. I feel like, and I wish I would come up with a name for it, but there's a hurdle of going from 0 purchases to 1. Once you get to 1, getting to 2 is just so much easier than getting to 1. Because if you've at least gotten one legit sale, not like just you testing or your friend testing it, that means convince somebody of that story. You're able to convince somebody of the benefit of what they're actually purchasing. That means you can do it again. But if you can never do it once, you got to keep on working at it. So when you first launch that site, a lot of people, they launch a site, they don't get any sales. So they start focusing on how are they going to handle when they get 1,000 purchases in one day. So they start building these automation systems, and they start building email marketing, and they start building this and all these other things that happen once people buy. But I'm like, wait, you don't have a sale. Like, that makes no sense to focus on what happens when you have 1,000 sales. If you're getting 1,000 sales a day, I think you'll have enough money to be able to figure out quickly how to handle all that, right? But if you're not getting any sales, you literally are not making any money. You're not getting anywhere.
Exactly. It's something that I've reflected on a lot too. And after doing this for a while, I wonder, what do you think about this? Do we as consultants, as the experts in the equation, do we have a moral obligation to advise our clients on how to invest wisely in these technologies, knowing that we, and I'm sure you have as well, have had conversations with clients where they are thinking about allocating a lot of budget towards something and not towards something else, like marketing, for the example that you gave. And you know that you could be the consultant who says, fine, I'll take your money. Sure, I'll build this for you. But at the same time, you also know this isn't going to benefit you. You're not making a wise investment. What's our ethical position in that? How do you feel?
So personally, how I handle it is I will only take on a project and charge a certain amount if I believe that with the proper effort, with all the other variables being as they should, there's a good chance that my client will get an ROI for their money, right? Or that it's worth their money. So if somebody tells me that all they want, it's not really the best example because I probably would go for this, but if they said all they want is a page that says hello, and they're going to pay somebody $10,000 for it, and it's not going to actually be marketed. Kind of tough to say no to that, but technically, following my procedures, I would say no to that because I know that that's not going to actually bring them back $10,000 unless somebody just told them that they're going to make $1 million because they need a page that says hello. So, this is getting a little too far fetched. So,
it could be a government project, though.
Touche. So, I think when you are selling your services, you have to be forward. You either have two ways that you can sell yourself. I'm a developer or I'm a consultant. One or the other. Now, if you're selling yourself as a developer, you technically, in my opinion, have no obligation to help them spend their money the right way. You are telling them, I write code, you tell me what to write, or we'll come up together with what I should write, and then I write it and you pay me for that. A consultant is the one who goes beyond that and starts stepping back a little bit to see the full picture, to know what's going on with the business, know how this website, how this system is going to come into play with all of that. Asks the questions about how people are actually going to find out about it, how people are going to interact with it, what is their past history with sales, what honestly, even digging into saying like, what are your specialties? Like, how is this business? Almost like Shark Tank, asking like, why are you the right person for this business? That's the questions that a consultant asks. And in that case, there's not even really like a moral, there's no obligation anymore to do a certain moral or ethical thing. That's like a legal, or not, that's a professional obligation. You're saying I'm a consultant, so those are the questions that you should be asking. So I think it's just at least starting out with that forward explanation of either I'm a developer or I'm a consultant gives the client the idea of how you're going to interact with them.
Brilliant. So it's important. It matters. It's important to make that distinction. And you've identified how you handle that situation. But let's provide guidance if we can to maybe that junior consultant or developer who doesn't have a lot of projects. They're hungry. They're looking for work to do. Yeah. And they're in the conversation with a prospective client. And that client throws ideas and says, this is what I want to do. Can you give me a quote on this? I'd really like to do it.
Yeah.
And you're the professional, the hungry developer looking for work, eager for projects, knows this isn't a good idea. This is not going to work. What do you tell yourself? How do you remind yourself that I'm not serving anybody's best interest by taking this project other than getting some short-term cash for me? Or do you just take it?
So this is something that you learn from experience. But when in a situation like that, you, it might sound appealing to go for it. It might sound like it's you know, you're just, you know, signing a contract that says you're going to get a certain amount to do what you're going to do. But when that project fails, even if it's not your fault, even if it's not because of anything that you did, even if it's not because the website was coded, but it's because they didn't know how to market it, it's because they didn't know how to operate their business, if it's because their son deleted the whole entire website one night and then they didn't have backups or anything else like that. Like, even if it was not your fault in any way, it's going to come back to you because you didn't provide actual value for them, and they're going to look for somebody to blame. So if you're a consultant that comes in and actually provides that value for them, that's when you have a better opportunity to actually control those variables a little bit more, and not kind of run away and even have people feel like you're ripping them off.
Nice. Yeah, right on. Absolutely right there with you. Do you have any, kind of changing gears just a little bit, but one of my favorite things for consultants who have been doing this for a few years is just to talk about those horror stories. So do you have any fun examples from the past that you can reach into that just illustrate the challenges that we go through? A project that at the time was anything but funny, but now you look back and just laugh, at least with relief that it's over.
Man, where to begin? No, man, this is like a curveball you threw at me.
With preparation,
do you have like a commercial? Like a commercial break, and I'd like bring up the Squarespace affiliate or something like that. Like, give me a couple minutes here, geez.
Take your time. I know I could probably think of many, and I know off the cuff probably I wouldn't come up with the best one, but if you do this for a while, you have those.
Let me hear one from you. I want to hear
it. Okay. I think I recall taking on some projects in our first year of business where we had a friend who was in our field and had clients and wanted to bring us into the equation. And we learned some hard lessons from the process. We got into some decent clients, but we considered ourselves a shoo-in because we had somebody batting for us. So we went into the meetings, at times not as prepared as we could have been. We sold ourselves maybe not as hard as we could have. When we did land some of the projects, we anticipated them going a little smoother than they did. We anticipated our insight being valued much more than it was. I recall working with a manufacturing company and around the same time a nonprofit camp of sorts where we began to discover how our friend who brings us in, we learned the lesson that nothing against him, but he had his own battles to fight and he wasn't going to fight ours for us. And if we email our rationale or our justification for changes or ideas, or we shoot down someone else's through someone, it doesn't translate well. No. And we just look bad. No one is going to articulate our argument for us as well as we will ourselves. So if we ask somebody to convey a message, they will do a very poor job of it every single time. And we will look like we're just being a pain. And suddenly we're at warring sides. Instead of a team working together, we are working against each other. And trust breaks down. Projects fall apart. Projects don't get finished. And at times our reputation is even tainted.
So what did you learn from that? What are you going to do different?
I learned to be our own advocate at all times. and never rely on someone else to advocate for us. Always be involved in just, if something matters, we talk to decision makers directly about it.
Yeah.
If it matters, we have to do that. We cannot have someone translating our message for us.
For sales, yeah.
For anything that relates to the project, if somebody sends a change down to the project and we say, whoa, not a good idea, we have to go straight up to the top with it. Otherwise our message won't be heard properly. And it sounds just like the web guys are being a problem. They don't want to do it.
Yeah.
It's a big deal.
Now, on my part, I had this client that back in 2010, I actually did IT services as well. So I would go out and fix people's computers and add printers and do malware services and all those other different things.
Wow.
And there was somebody that I was helping with his computer, and he was starting a radio show. And so he told me he was it was on a legit radio, it wasn't just like online radio or anything like that. And not to say that online radio can't be legit too, podcasts. But what deal we struck is that I would help him build out the site, and in return he was giving us like an opportunity to be to have ads, right? Or commercials. So I probably spent like 20 to 30 to maybe even 40 hours building the site for him, and we recorded this cute little commercial, and nothing. I got nothing out of it. Literally nothing. Like I don't think anybody actually listened to his show, and maybe our commercial sucked, but we did a commercial about IT services, about computer repair, things like that, and yeah, nobody, nothing. So it killed me, because I mean, you put up commercials, and it's not to say like you're going to get all these people that are responding to you, and you're going to make your money back no matter what. But it kind of frustrated me that I spent all of this time building out a site for them, and I got nothing in return. So that was something where I stopped doing any trading of services or obviously discounts, but definitely anyone that says like, hey, if you build me a site, I'll do this in return or something like that. I avoid those like a plague. Or I don't really, there's a lot of people that I was starting to do a little app development stuff, and there were always people that were saying like, oh, I'll give you a small percentage of the company. And I personally, at least, I've never been interested in something like that.
It is so funny how often those come up in our field. It seems like I encountered them a lot more in years past than lately. I don't know what the change is, but it definitely comes up. I don't know why. Are other service providers getting the same offers that we're getting? I mean, I was at a business meetup once, and someone said she was interested in a website for her business and offered, no kidding, a discount on a foot detox in exchange for a website. A discount.
Yeah, I remember when I was at an expo one time for my IT services, and I think I also was mentioning that I was kind of doing some app stuff back then. And I'll never forget when a guy walked up to me and he goes, hey, so I have this idea for an app, and it's so good that I know everybody's going to want it. Everyone's going to have it on their phone. It's just a beautiful, beautiful idea. So let's do this. I know everyone like in the country is going to pay like $1 for it. So I'm going to have you build the app, and you can get 10% of whatever it makes. So he's literally saying that I will take on the risk, that I'll spend 200, 300, 400 hours building this thing for him. And then if it doesn't work, he gets away because he didn't spend any time. And then I just wasted 400 hours. And and if it does work, I literally get 10%, whereas this guy gets 90% of this beautiful, beautiful idea that everybody needs to have for $1. So, and honestly, that story isn't even that special, because I think everyone's heard of that at least once. But just thinking of like the actual economics of it all is hilarious to think of somebody spending all of that dedication and time that the other person doesn't even have to, and then getting 10% of it.
It's astounding and shocking to me at times how many people need perhaps a reminder that an idea actually not as valuable as you think it is.
The execution, yeah.
On the other hand, execution, now there's a lot of value there.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. Good examples. Thank you. So looking ahead to the future, what kind of things get you really excited? It could be project that you've got going on. It could be some new projects that you are intrigued, or new things you might do professionally, or new changes in our industry, trends that you think are really exciting and beneficial. Just looking at 2017, 2018, working it. What's exciting you?
Yeah. This beautiful presidential election has me just enthralled, that it's, I guess, no election, no more.
It's over. It's over. You can turn on the TV again, right?
Yeah. Oh, so yeah, everything's great again. Anyway.
Everything's great again. No.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a couple different things. So I'm kind of exploring opportunities for the when I mentioned before that there's a lot of people who don't invest in the marketing side, and they just focus on development. I've never been able to actually offer or even refer people to somebody that provides those services and does them well. So it's been a lot of times that I've tried to kind of find really good people that do meaningful and worthwhile online services. And I, at least personally, have never found really a solid referral. So that's something that I'm kind of, it's in the works of what that offering would look like. Another thing, like I mentioned before, even Shopify is definitely an interesting platform. And there's a lot of opportunities for add-ons and themes and other paid services that go on top of that. So that's another thing that I'm kind of exploring my options. But I know within the next couple of years, my goal is to kind of introduce myself to more people in the WordPress space, in the tech space overall, in the online space, because I've kind of been in stealth mode for such a long time that, even like you said before we started recording, that you heard of me, but you didn't know what the heck I did, right? Like, you didn't know much about me, and if you don't know much about me, then you don't know what I stand for. You don't know what I care about, what kind of things I'm pushing for, what, all those other kind of things. So that's really, even going on podcasts like this that have really cool audiences. I can definitely see myself doing that over the next couple of years.
One thing that I wanted to talk about just a little bit, you work a lot with EDD. So do I.
I do.
It's a great platform.
Yeah.
I've been working with the EDD team for a long time now. And I wanted to get your take, short version. Why do you appreciate the EDD platform and do so many projects with it?
Sure. It's kind of interesting. A lot of people that contact me through woo experts. I don't know why I always have to say woo. The people that contact me through woo experts, a lot of them actually are a good fit for EDD. And sometimes people that fill out the form for EDD, they're actually a good fit for WooCommerce. So there's pros and cons. It's not even pros and cons of both platforms. There's the right situation for the right platform. So EDD is good if you're selling digital goods, obviously. I wouldn't say obviously, but I guess if you're selling digital goods, it's really solid for membership platforms, for recurring revenue platforms, for any other platform that, like, you're not actually shipping out any products, and it's just stupid simple to manage everything, and even to set everything up. So it kind of, without the shipping, without the addresses and all the other things that go along with shipping, it's a simple e-commerce platform that is within WordPress. So it just makes sense to use that instead of having a full e-commerce system that's almost over the top with all these billing addresses and shipping addresses and all the things that actually go with actually shipping out products.
Sure.
And they have that beautiful thing called support that they're really good at.
Yeah, yeah, the support's not bad. It's not bad. Um, so you get an opportunity to take advantage of their extensive extension offering. Do you have any go-to E2D extensions that you frequently use that you're a big fan of? I'm so glad that this one exists.
I mean, their MailChimp one is good, but that's really not that special to note. I mean, so a lot of the work that we do is custom development. Pretty much all of the work that we do is custom development. So for us, we're not really integrators that are kind of like finding all the extensions and just doing what they're going to do and installing them and press, and saying go. A lot of our work is actually developing out new extensions, custom extensions for the client. So that's definitely, I mean, even something that I built today is, or the past couple of weeks too, is making it so when somebody purchases a certain product, that a separate email goes out to a vendor letting them know that that product has been bought. So things like that, it's really not that complicated to build a functionality on top of the platform to find out what product is being purchased and then be able to send out the email notifications automatically when something is purchased. So being able to do those custom solutions on a really, really fun platform means that I honestly, I really don't touch too many extensions because sometimes there are extensions that instead of installing a whole nother plugin, you can actually just put like a 10 line code snippet somewhere in your site.
Sure, sure. Have you ever, and I probably should know, but do you release any of your own plugins, distribute anything?
Back in the day, probably 2-3 years ago, I released one extension or one plugin, sorry, for WordPress. And I think it's on the repo, but I never really pushed for any marketing of it. I never really pushed for anyone to try it or care about it really.
Yeah.
So I think I sold a premium license too once for $20. But then they contacted me either once or twice for support. So then I kind of already then lost my money beyond all the, all the time and investment for actually developing it. For me, I've considered getting into that space, but it's something that if you're not at the proper economies of scale, you're wasting your time. If you're not selling lots and lots and lots of extensions or raising your prices to really high, you're not going to make it. So I've never actually put in the time or research into building a plugin that thousands of people would be interested in. And so I've never gotten into it. I think it would be cool. It would be really cool to interact with 1,000 people that are buying a plugin for $20 or 10,000 people that are buying a plugin for $30. Then
right.
It's just there's a lot of opportunity there of upselling and introducing new features and upgrades and all those other cool things. So it's an intriguing idea. I've just never actually gotten into it.
Sure. What sort of things do you like to do in your spare time, Scott?
So this one I always have to preface. I do this for my own personal benefit, for learning more about myself, for having fun, and for understanding storytelling and empathy. I didn't move to LA for this, but I go to acting classes. So a lot of people, they're like, oh my God, like acting classes in LA, like classic. Or some people think, oh yes, you moved to LA to become an actor. Yeah, good luck with that, And hey, if it works out, it works out. But I don't see myself ever becoming, even if I was really, really successful at it, I would never really stop my love for technology and my desire for using technology to help people. But it's definitely, I've been going since April, even though I started at a really bad acting studio, sorry to say, and then I moved to one that I really, really love now. And it really taught me, and Chris Lemma should have told, going to all of his talks, it should have taught me already. But the power of storytelling is incredible. I've always focused just kind of on the logical and rational explanation for doing things, or the here's our problem. We can either do A or we can do B, and trying to use logic and reasoning to say why we should go with A, even if the desire is to go with B. And there's a lot of people, and just humans overall, we're so influenced by stories, by emotion, by emotional appeal, that you can't always just convince people and show them the right way by just logic and reasoning. There has to be kind of a full story that people can get behind. So acting has definitely been my way of understanding stories more, understanding the power of stories, understanding how to actually tell stories, and the emotional power that goes behind an impactful story.
Great. That sounds cool. There's nothing wrong with that.
Cool.
So we're kind of wrapping up here, Scott. It's time's flown by. And so I want to ask you just a couple of quick final questions. What is on your calendar for the rest of this year and for early 2017? Where might people bump into you?
So we're getting pretty close to the end. The only one that I have is WordCamp US.
Just a couple weeks away.
I know. You're going, right? No, yeah. I think are we gonna be in the same?
We're going to be sharing a house.
Okay. Wow. All right. Well, I'll see you then. And then I'm set to go to CES, and that's technically 2017, the 3rd to the 6th. But I will be heading to Vegas.
All right. That's pretty cool. So, real quick, do you have any good recommendations for guests that I should invite on the show in the future?
I feel like you want that on the air. That's a lot of pressure on that person.
You know, some people have an answer ready. Some people struggle with it.
I'm sure you've already had Adam Silver on.
Oh, certainly. He's even made surprise appearances on some episodes. He threatened to do so today.
Chris Glazowski, you got him?
Yeah, a long time ago.
Okay.
Yeah.
You always do it again. Jen Miller, do you know who that is?
I do know who that is, and she's not been on the show yet.
See, that's a good one. You can do Bridget Willard from
That's a good choice.
See, yeah, those are I think those two would be my top choices. I think.
Great.
Honestly, I think it would be even just an amazing show if you had both of them on at the same time, because they're like beautiful personalities, and when you put them together, and it's the most amazing thing in the world. So I think you should have a dual interview with both of them.
Oh, wow. An out-of-the-box suggestion.
Challenge on.
Wow. Not everybody suggests I break the mold in that fashion, but
see?
Hey, great. Love it. So as we wrap up, is there any parting words of wisdom that you would like to share, or any pitches that you feel inclined to make? And also, how can people get in touch with you if they're so inclined?
Yeah, so I think my pitch and actually getting in touch is pretty much the same. If you're wanting to follow me on Twitter, you can find me at Scott Buscemi. I don't know if it's reading backwards on the video or not.
It looks good to me.
Yeah. All right. Well, Scott, and then my last name, Scott Buscemi, on Twitter. You can also look at our website, Luminary, LUMINARY.ws. And we have a form on there if you're interested in working together on your website, either building it out, seeing what you can do to grow it, or if you're looking to add new features to your site. I'm definitely down to talk.
Great. Well, thank you so much for your time this evening, Scott. I appreciate you coming on the show.
Yeah. I appreciate being on here. Thank you.
We will be hanging out in a couple weeks. I look forward to it.
Woo!
All right.
In the cold of Philly.
It wasn't that bad last year.
That's true.
It'll be good. It'll be great.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Signing off.
Peace out.